Connirae.
Hi, Angélique.
Hi. I want to say that I'm going to interview Connirae Andreas here for the Dutch organization of NLP, the NVNLP. And I'm so happy because I was a student in your 3 days about the process of wholeness. And,
Yes.
and I was flabbergasted because I didn't know about that before. And I was really, it was a very deep, transforming workshop or seminar or what you would call it. And that's why I'm so happy to be able to interview you about your... Yeah, absolutely. So
Well, it is a pleasure to be here and talking with you. Yes. And I'm so glad you did get that opportunity to be in the training ahead of time because since it's new, it's not something that I can put into old categories.
No.
So I can't, when people say, what is it, and they've never experienced before, it's difficult to give an answer. It's much easier to just go into a workshop and then you know.
Yeah, but absolutely, because I was watching that video of Martin Weiss, and you made a lot clear, but I saw that before, and it didn't make all that sense until I was in your seminar. So that's awesome, was awesome. And one of the things that's really amazed me is your ease with which you are, in front of groups. It's with sense of, self-deprecation, I think the word is, like humorous and light, and still going on to bring us to a higher level. So I was amazed and I was very, very pleased. And so I'm happy now. Yeah. So my curiosity about the process first, maybe, because one of my questions is it following your core transformation or doesn't that has anything to do with it?
Oh, that's a good question. I consider this to be along the same lines. I think it's the trajectory, it follows the trajectory of my life journey. And really both the core transformation work and the wholeness work, they're moving in the same direction. It's a little bit hard to describe what that direction is even, but if you've experienced either one, you have that sense. Both of them are more about uncovering this core being, sort of this, it's been described as more of pure essence, or in terms of the core states, the sense of well-being, oneness, peace, love, these kind of things that are easy to say in words, but when one really experiences that as something just flowing naturally out of one's being, it can be quite profound and significant and quite life-changing. Yeah. So that's what the core transformation work does, right? It helps us access those states even through our problems, and then the flowing of those states ends up transforming those problems quite significantly. Then I think the wholeness work, it for me became the next step on that journey, and it isn't necessarily for everyone in that order. I think the two methods are quite different from each other in terms of the procedure, in terms of how we work, or how we do the inner processing. They're totally different.
Yeah.
So what that means is it's lovely because it's not redundant. It's like, okay, I did the core transformation work myself in my own life. It made a lot of changes for me that were good, and it was the first method that really worked for me. I little things work now and then with other kinds of methods, and I would try everything with myself. Yeah. But the reality was that most things didn't really work with me, and that's why I think I was so motivated to find something deeper. And so with the core transformation work, that finally I found something that would work for me too, not just for my clients.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you say that. You told me that, or you told us that in Nijmegen too, with the EAP where we were. You proclaimed your being the hardest client yourself. Like not every NLP thing works for you, and so you came, on different ways.
Yeah.
How is that? How is that?
I think for many people, the core transformation work is a good, a very valuable way way to begin this kind of work, this kind of deeper, very deeply transformative work that both core transformation and wholeness are.
Yeah.
They're not just about fixing one problem. It's really more about this deep transformation that affects us across the board all through our lives. And we start feeling more well-being overall. It's not just about fixing one problem anymore.
Yeah.
So oftentimes core transformation is the easier way for people to begin that journey. And then wholeness, it is a whole different way of working, yet it moves in a similar direction. It's very complementary, we could say.
Yes.
And I think it helps for many people pick up where core transformation left off.
Okay.
And one can go back and forth between the two. Some people are starting with wholeness and then going back to core transformation and finding that valuable. So it's not necessarily always in the same order that I did it personally, that people discover these processes.
Yeah.
But often that's a useful way. When people have experience with the core transformation work, I think it makes the wholeness work more accessible.
I tend to agree, because I never learned it from you personally, but from your book, the core transformation, that is. And I found it tremendously effective to my clients too, and for myself. So I can obviously agree that in that case, your last seminar came in really in a deep way. But I was wondering, because you say you are your own hardest client, this is what you found, so you kept your belief in NLP system anyway, because it's core transformation. I recognize NLP. In the wholeness process, a little bit less. More maybe what you told us, Sri Ramana Maharshi, he was your model for this. How would you describe the process, if you could? I know you can't do it in depth, but if you could.
I want to understand your question a little bit better. Actually, let me just start here.
Yes.
In terms of the relationship of Sri Ramana Maharshi, I consider he and his work the inspiration for the wholeness work.
Yes.
And the main inspiration for the beginning place. And then, and it was really a matter of a particular spiritual teaching, his most fundamental, most core spiritual teaching that he gave to people, which was that people should ask of themselves the question, who am I, who am I, who am I, throughout, just constantly, nonstop, to ask that question until they got the answer. And so it wasn't so much a modeling of, it's not a modeling in the way that we usually think about it.
Okay.
But what I did was both try to get a sense of him and his being. I watched videos online.
Yeah.
And of some of his students to get a sense of what are they going for? What is the end result they're going for? And through both his writings and through the sense of what is he demonstrating when I watch him online a little bit on some of these old videos. There's not much available on Ramana Maharshi. The video is very poor quality that I could find. But to get a beginning impression, so I got the sense, okay, what they're really going for here is similar to what comes through the core transformation work, this sense of the vastness of the vast self, this sense of beingness that is just so vast, so both so profound and so ordinary that it's difficult to describe without experience, because the ordinariness is just as true as the extraordinariness in this experience, but the vastness is definitely a part of it. It's that we're not experiencing ourselves as a small constricted being, and without really knowing just even what do they mean by that when they say experience the vastness. What do they mean? And what I began to do is think that rather than this question that he was posing to people, who am I, who am I, who am I? And that question was intended as a pointer to experience this vastness. And I thought, that's true, that doesn't work for most people. And it was even said in the writings from Ramana Maharshi the students they said this teaching doesn't work for most people. You have to be ready, was how they put it.
Yeah.
It works for maybe 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 or even more.
Yeah.
That this teaching can work. And I thought to myself, how can it be possible for me and for maybe other people to have this experience? Maybe it can be more than 1 in 10,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we understand what he's pointing to, perhaps a better question than who am I, and expect to get to some experience of this vast self. Perhaps a better route would be to find this experience of I that we actually have now, rather than to go think that we're somehow going to get to some other experience of self, and that it be something vast. What if we start with just what's the experience of self right now? So I changed the question.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't come from Ramana Maharshi. The new question comes from trying to understand what is his intention and thinking maybe this will work a little more easily to get there.
Yeah.
So, but his whole philosophy and the philosophy of others like him in Eastern spirituality, that was what I was working with. Like, okay, if we take that philosophy, but then how am I going to find my way there? Well, maybe rather than just try to experience some sense of this vastness, I'm not sure how to do that. What if I start where I am? What's the experience of self I have right now? And so I asked myself the question, so where is the I located? Instead of who am I, it's more where is the I located that I'm experiencing right now in this moment.
Yeah.
And right away I got an answer, right away I got the sense of, oh, well, it seems like it's something right up here.
Yeah.
It's sort of invisible, doesn't really have much shape or much substance, but since it's right here. And then I drew upon some previous work that I'd done to come up with a way to work with that.
Yeah.
So it was drawing, and this whole method, I think, draws on principles from many, many people. There are principles from Gestalt therapy. There are principles from Jung, from Jungian analysis that are drawn upon. There are, but the underlying philosophy is drawn from Eastern spirituality. So I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have come to the method without that, because I was starting there and going, how can I experience this, what they're speaking of, and with that question, just starting to explore and play around with different possibilities.
Yeah.
And then once I find the small I, okay, now how can we go from there to the experience of the vast self? Because it's always, from NLP we have the idea of pacing and leading. You don't start necessarily with where you want to end up.
No.
You start where you are,
Yeah.
and then you find your transition.
Yes.
So I was using that fundamental NLP principle.
Exactly.
With these NLP, working with these spirituality concepts.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does that begin to make sense?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then
Yeah.
in the process, then there's a very simple way that I just invite people to experience the field of awareness as an ordinary thing, not as some mystical spiritual thing, but just the field of awareness that we can all notice in the moment, whether we have spiritual beliefs or not. And that was another part of my goal, and it always has been with core transformation work, with the wholeness work, and this is reinforced by NLP and the NLP philosophy, that it's always about, we're on solid ground if we're staying true to our experience.
Yeah.
If we get into theory and concepts too far, we can get really lost really quickly.
True, absolutely, yes.
But if we stay true to our experience, then this is solid ground. And so rather than package this as some new spirituality and I'm going to be a guru to this new church sort of thing, I'm presenting it as sticking to what I know in terms of experience.
Yeah.
And without adding any belief systems. Now I started with some concepts from spirituality, but without when we drop away the belief systems, if we just deal with experience.
Yeah.
Experience of the small self, which I can find easily,
Yes.
And, where's the I?
Yes.
I go, hey, I'm talking to you. Where's the I?
Yeah.
Where's I?
Yes.
And I can always find the location. And then I just began to experiment with what allows people to integrate, not shift, not change perspective from one to the other, because there are a lot of spiritual techniques and psychological techniques that do that. We move from one perspective to another perspective. But the wholeness work is really not doing it that way.
No.
We instead, okay, here's this I that's talking to you or whatever, and rather than shift from this small I to a vast I, what if this energy, if we could call it that, or whatever part of my life force that is involved in creating this I structure, what if that is invited to dissolve, to relax, dissolve, melt, so that it actually becomes a part of the whole field of awareness that I can notice if I'm invited to do that. Now, I'm going through this really quickly because I don't want to repeat what is already done.
No, but I understand, and for the people who don't know the process, I think it's really great how you can comprise that and making it clear that even we Westerns now it's accessible. You made it very accessible to experience this as, feeling part of this vastness, of this wholeness. So that's absolutely true. That's how we experienced it there with you too. Absolutely.
Yeah. That what you just said, that is exactly my intention with it. So if I can begin to experience this, then if I can put it into words and make it into steps, then all of us can. It's accessible to everyone. It's no longer just a mystical idea or a belief system or a philosophy.
No. It's reality. Yeah.
Access to, and it's good for more than just spiritual. What we might think of as spiritual development. And what is that really? What is? I come to think spiritual development, personal development, becoming who we really want to be. It's all the same thing.
Exactly. Yes. So I don't know, because of course things can be cut out of this. But my question would also be: you've been developing this as I remember it. You're telling us in a period you were actually very frail. Your health wasn't very well, and so in that period you somehow gathered forces inside of you to start thinking out this process. How did you do that?
Yes, I'm not sure if I would think about it as gathering forces, but it's an interesting idea. It definitely comes out of my own personal experience, and I would call it